Hi, welcome to part two of getting started with Unity. If you missed part one where we installed Unity Hub and went over that a little bit and then also installed the Unity editor, this Unity 2021, then go ahead and check out that video and the link for that will be in the description below. But after we did all that, we got to this point, created our first project. We were greeted with this window here. And as we get started here, you might look around and see we have these different tabs around. And these different tabs are called panels. And in the middle, we have our scene view panel here. And in our scene view panel, you can think of this as our scene view or scenes. You can think of those as our levels for our game. So if you're making like a 10 level game or a 10 level project, then you can just translate that to be like 10 different scenes. So the scene can be seen as a level. So as we look around here, a quick tips on navigation. I can use my middle scroll click. If I click on that, I can pan around in this scene view. And then if I right click, I can look around where my camera is, and you might see that little Tetris symbol there next to my mouse symbol there. That just letting me know that I can fly around my scene. So I can use the WASD keys to fly around and then use the Q and the E to elevate. And that's just some quick navigation tips. Also in the scene view to the left here, you can see I have my tools panel. If I click on one of these objects here in my scene view, and these objects, when you in Unity, these objects are called game objects. So if I click on a game object here, I'm gonna click on this helmet here. If I can get it without clicking on something else. There we go. Clicked on the safety hat. I can click on these different tools. So this first tool is the move tool, and this allows me to move my object in my scene view. I'm going to turn off these gizmos, and we'll get to that in a second as well. So if I go back to this move tool, you can see I can move this in the X, Y, and Z axis. The X denoted with this red arrow, the Y with the green arrow, and the blue for the Z direction. So I can move in all these directions with this move tool, and then you can see if I go in a little bit, they all have their own faces, so I can move in two different directions at the same time, clicking on one of those faces. To undo those actions, all I have to do is hit Control Z. So if I want to put it back to where it originally was, I can just hit Control Z a couple times to put it back to its original position. Next, we have the rotation tool, and then the rotation tool allows me to rotate the object on its axis. So I can rotate this game object in any direction based on the axis. You can see I have those colors again, so I can rotate it on the X, the Y, and the Z. And if I click like in the middle area, I can rotate it all around those axes at the same time. I'm just hit Control Z a couple times to get it back to where it was. And the next tool we have is the scale tool. So this allows me to make it bigger or smaller. So, and the same thing with the move and the rotation, I can scale it up in a specific direction. So if I want to scale it just in the Z, I can just grab this blue box here. If I want to scale it in the X or the Y, I just grab those boxes. Now if I want to scale it proportionally, then I can just grab this middle box, this middle gray box, and it will scale them in all directions proportionally. Next, we have the Rect Tool. So the Rect Tool is similar to the Scale Tool, but it allows me to scale based off the plane that I'm looking at. So here, it's only letting me scale it in the Y and the X direction. So I can just scale it up like that, just by clicking on the edge of this box and pulling it out. And then as I move my camera around, the size that I can scale it on changes. So that's the Rect Tool. And it's more useful when you're creating like square items and things that are perfectly square or something like that for the Rect Tool. And then hit Control Z a couple times to resize that back down. And then this last tool allows me to do the move, rotation, and scale all in the same. So just like a time saver tool if I'm trying to really save some time and just do everything instead of having to click between each tool. And then these tools can also be clicked on hotkeys. You can hit Q to go to that first top move tool, and then the W, E, R, T, and Y are the hotkeys to switch to those different tools when you're in that scene view. Along here with the scene view, at this top little panel here, if you go over to the right, you have the draw mode of your scene. So if I wanted to see the wireframe of all my items in the scene, or all my game objects in the scene, I can hit wireframe. And then you also have shaded wireframe, will show you their colors and also show you their wireframe as well. And then just keeping it on shaded, you'll just see them as they would be seen in the game view. Next, we have a toggle to switch to 2D view. So 2D view and 3D view. So if you are, this is good if you're, when you're working on your UI, or if you're just making a 2D game, then you will most likely be in 2D. But when you're working on your UI and your 3D game, you can always switch to 3D mode, and this will help you line up your UI elements like your buttons, your panels, and your things like that, switching over to a 2D view to see that. Next, we have a light bulb, and this is just to turn on and off the lights in your scene. You can see when I turn that off, things got a little more matte color, more dull. That's because the lights are turned off. The next little toggle here is turning on and off the audio. So if you're making a game and you have an annoying sound that keeps playing, you just want to focus on something else instead of hearing that sound all the time, then you can turn that off. Next is a toggle for like the Skybox and things like that. So you can see in my background, there is like a gray ground and then a blue sky. So that is what's called a Skybox. So here you can toggle like the fog, the Skybox, and different things you have in your scene with that. So I can just turn that off and you can see that went away. And now I just have this gray background because there's no Skybox. The next toggle is to turn on and off hidden items in your scene, so you can make these game objects in your scene, pretty much hide them if you wanted to. If they're in the way as you're developing, then you can hide those and can toggle all of them off. So if you're making a big game, you have a lot of things, you want to turn off all the trees, you have 1,000 trees, you can hide them all at once and just toggle on them off that way. Next, we have the settings for this scene view camera. So this field of view that we see here can be distorted if we want to, depending on if you're distorting our main camera. You might want to change this to have a more realistic view of when you're developing. And then also here is where we can change that camera speed. You saw when I right click and use the WASD to fly around, all those settings can be changed with my camera speed. So if I'm making a large open world game and I need to fly all the way to the other side of the screen, I can change this camera speed to get there faster. And then this last one was the Gizz Modes, and you saw me turn those off earlier. So if I click on that, it shows like the Gizz Modes, and those are just icons for the different objects I have in my scene. If I click this drop down, I can scale them up and down. Then I also can change if I want them to be faded or not. And then you also have the icons that you actually want to show. So if there's certain icons you want, you can take them out. If you have some custom icons you want to put in there, you can pretty much control those here. All right, next we have in our Unity editor, we have the game view. So this is the view that the player is going to see when they start their game and when you play the game. So this view is coming from the main camera. If I click on my scene view again and click on main camera, you can see I have this little preview window down at the bottom, and that is what that game view feed is coming from. Down on this little panel below the game tab, or the game panel tab, I click on game. I have the option to switch over to simulator, and here I can simulate different devices. So here you can see it's simulating an iPad. So if I know the devices I want to target, if I want to test out on different devices, then I can switch to simulator view, and then I can just switch to different devices here to see what my game will look like on different devices. And you can see they have a lot of them to choose from. So I'm going to switch back to game view. The display is the display of which camera I want to show. So if I had multiple cameras in my scene, I can switch between different views of those cameras. So I can switch from my first camera to my second camera and just assign it to be which display. Free aspect, this is where I can set the resolution of my game, or my target resolution that I want to aim for. Similar to like the simulator, if I know the target resolution that I want, if I want it to be full HD, then I can switch it over, and then now I know what a full HD view would look like in my game. If I had a custom resolution I want to try, then I can just hit this plus sound here, and I can put in my own width and height, which will be in pixels. Next, we have the scale, and this is just to zoom in and zoom out here. And then moving along, when we want to actually play the game and see what happens in our game, we can hit this play button up here. and you see mine change my editor. It changed colors to let me know that I'm in play mode. And with this sample packet, it comes with a script or some code to let us move around. So you can see I can look around by right clicking, and then I can use the WSD here to fly around and while I'm playing the game. So you have a play and you have a pause. So if you're playing the game, in the middle of the game, you are testing it out and you want to stop it in the middle of that, you can hit pause. And then you also have a skip step button here as well. So if you're playing a game, you want to see how something works. You'll say you're working on like an animation or a character walking, and you want to see him go frame by frame of how he walks and see each step that he takes. You can pause it, and then you can use this skip step with this frame skip, and you can just go frame by frame to see those frames individually for your game. I'm gonna come out of play mode. And then one thing to note about play mode, any changes you make while in play mode won't be saved. So just be aware of that. So if you go into play mode, you make some changes to the object that you say you want to move it. It's in the wrong position. So in play mode, you moved it. When you come back out of play mode, it's going to pretty much revert back to those original positions and things like that. So nothing in play mode gets saved. Next, we have this play focused. If I click this drop down and go to play maximize, this is just going to maximize this screen when I hit play. So now if I hit play, you can see my screen got bigger, and it still kept that full HD resolution there in the middle too. So if I come out of play, if you want to take up the whole screen, I can just switch back to free aspect. And this is just going to take up the whole screen that I have here. So if I hit play now, it's going to take up all that full screen. There we go. Come back out of play. Then you have your mute audio. So this is similar to before with the scene view. If you don't want this hear the audio play, you can just hit this mute audio and it won't play while you're editing and making your game. The stats, this is for more for like optimization and just see how your game is running. You can see if I hit play mode, I can see the frames per second. I can see the tries and the verts, and if that don't make sense to you now, it's because you're a beginner. These are just optimization terms that you'll probably learn as you go along, but this just know that these are just used for optimization for your game and things like that. I'm gonna come out of play mode, and then Gizmos here allows me to see the Gizmos here if I want to see the Gizmos for some reason here in the game view. So come out of there. Our next panel up here with the scene and game view is the asset store. So the asset store is where you can get different assets for your game, and an asset is just like your game objects and their different templates and things that you can put into your project. So coming over here to the asset store, you can see you can get 3D model or 3D models and characters and environments and things. You can get 2D, you can get some audio, you can get some templates of things. So let's say we come in here and we typed in zombie. We're looking for a zombie. So here we can see we can get a free zombie model that we can put in our game. You can see they also have some paid assets here as well. So if you're looking for something more unique, you can get more features if you pay some money. So if you're looking for something more unique, you can pay for it. But they also have some free items here as well. So once you get an item, well, get an asset to put in your game, it will be put down here in your projects folder. So if you went to the asset store, you got that zombie, and you imported it into your project, it will be put down here in the asset folder. And your asset folder is where you are going to hold all those files and all the files for your game. So your 3D models, your audio, your scripts that you write or the code that you write are all going to be stored down here in the asset folder. You also have the package folder down here, and this is more for back end things and back end of how Unity works and how things are working that you don't really have to touch and how that's working for you. You really won't spend a lot of time in your packages unless you're trying to create like a core system type thing for your game. Most of the things you're going to be making and working with are going to be put in this asset folder. And then next to this projects panel, we have the console. And the console is where your error is going to show up. So once you get to start coding and making your interactions and things like that work, you might run into some errors, and you can come to your console. This is what's going to show you those errors and hopefully give you a direction to fix it. A lot of times they have the direction and they know what the error is, and it tells you what you need to do to fix those errors. So switching back to my projects panel, and then once you have your assets, so if I click in here into this example asset folder and then click on models, you can see I have a lot of models here that I can put in my scene. So if I want, say I wanted to put this jigsaw in my scene, all I have to do is click on it and drag it into the scene view, or alternatively, I can just click on it and drag it into this hierarchy to the left. And once I put this asset from the asset folder into the hierarchy into my scene view, it becomes a game object. And if you click on this game object, you can see these different game objects in your hierarchy view. The hierarchy panel, what it does, it just stores your game objects and lets you know what's in your game, in your scene, and what the player is going to see in this scene. So if you click on them, you may have noticed to the right something changing, and that's the inspector panel. And the inspector is just going to give me the details of the object that I'm clicking on. So here you can see I'm clicking on the jigsaw. If I right click in my hierarchy, go to 3D objects and create a cube, I can create a cube in my scene. And you can see it has different properties than the jigsaw. But you may have noticed at the top it has a transform. So no matter what you put in your scene, in your game, it also just like in the real world, every object needs a place to live in your scene. If you in your scene in your project, your items also need that to have a position, rotation, and a scale. So no matter what you put in your hierarchy in your game, in your project, in your scene view, they're going to have a transform on them. That's just going to define its position and rotation and scale relative to its parents or to the world itself. So what I mean by parent, so if you look in here in my hierarchy, my example assets has a little arrow to the right, to the left of it that allows me to drop down. So all these other game objects that are underneath this example asset are what are called children of this parent game object. So if I click on this jigsaw, or if I click on this cube and then I drag it over my jigsaw, this cube is now a child of this jigsaw game object. So that is the parent and child relationship of those objects. And you can see my position change once I did that as well. So let me do that again. So now you can see this is my position. So I put this at 0, 0, 0. But the position of these objects are based off of their parent object, so, and not the origin, which is at 0, 0, 0. Continuing over into the inspector, you can see, like I said, everything's going to have a transform on it, and then after the transform, they can have different properties as well. So here you can see it has like the cube, um, the mesh renderer, the box collider on this cube. If I click on my jigsaw, it just has a mesh renderer and material on it. And these are what are called components. So a component is what gives an item its properties or its characteristics. And if I click on the bottom here, I can hit add component. Unity comes with its own sets of components that we can add. What we also can add we'll create our own components by writing code. And when we write our code is what is called a script. So if I go back to this asset folder and go to the scripts folder, you can see there is a script in here. And this is pretty much a custom written script that we can put on a game object. And when we put it on a game object, it becomes a component. So with this simple camera controller script, what I can do, I can just click on my cube and I can drag this script to the bottom like that. And now this cube has that script on it, which will now be referred to as a component that it has on it. And I can remove that just by clicking the three dots and just hit click to remove component. And your scripts, they pretty much can go on any game object that you want once you write them. So it's pretty much universal. So if you had like one script to rotate objects, you can put that on all the objects that you want to rotate. So you don't have to keep rewriting that script. You can just you just put that same script on the different objects. And that is a rundown of the Unity the Unity editor here in Unity 2021. There's a few changes, so if you are coming from like 2020, there are a few changes that have been made, but this is a quick rundown of how to get started here and what you will see once you open this project and what all these different panels mean and things like that. If you don't like this view, this is the default view, and I pretty much just use this view. If you want to change it, you can go over here to the top right where it says default, and they have different views that you can choose from. So if I go to 2 by 3, you can see these panels, they all moved around a wide view here. So here you can just switch between these different views. I just stick to the default. If you want your own custom view, you can always drag these panels out by clicking on their name. So if you have 2 or 3 monitors, you can split these views to be on, or these panels to be on different monitors. So I can put if I wanted to drag this hierarchy out, I can put that on one monitor. I can drag out my game view, put it on a different monitor, and just reorganize things how I want to. If one of these accidentally get deleted somehow, so if my game view is deleted, so if I click here and hit this X and now I don't have my game view, well, let me go back to the default. So I click on my game view and drag it out, and say I accidentally exited out on my other screen, I don't have my game view anymore. To add it back, all I have to do is click this 3-button drop down and then click on add tab, and you can see my game view is there. And then alternatively, I can go to window, and up here you can see panels, and it has my default panels that I want open. I can also add them here as well. Like I said, that is part 2 here of getting started with Unity. Now you have well, not all the tools that you need to be dangerous here in Unity, but a basic layout of what to do and how a couple things work here to move things around and start playing with things. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. If something wasn't clear, I can clear it up there in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, give it a like. If you want to know when I drop more videos of things I create and tutorials like this, then go ahead and subscribe. And if you want to support this channel, just go ahead and check out the Coffee page in the description below. And I will talk to you all next time.